So it wouldn't really be economics unless we talked about some sort of scarcity, right? Going back to the original definition of economics that I gave you in lecture 1, like the short version, was that economics is decision making under scarcity. So when we're talking about choosing between consumption bundles, well, obviously, if you had no scarcity, you would just consume as many things as you want, right? But there's got to be something restraining you, right? Whether it's your money, like your actual physical budget, or if it's the amount of calories you need to, maintain or like can possibly eat or whatever, or it's the amount of time. So let's say you have unlimited money and unlimited, you can just eat whatever and not gain weight, or you just eat whatever and not care. Well, at some point you're gonna have to go to sleep, right? So there's something keeping you from eating an unlimited amount of food or consuming an unlimited amount of whatever. Okay, and we call that something the budget constraint. That is the limiting factor whenever you're making a decision. Okay, and typically we use dollars as budget constraint, but I'm about to give you a calorie example because why limit yourself? Economics is a much broader field than sometimes economists or sometimes it's pictured as, right? So here's an example of just economizing your budget. Using calories. Your budget is calories in this case. So let's go through it. Okay, so resources are scarce. Abby can eat an unlimited amount of samosas and drink an unlimited amount of beers, right? This is going back to the definition of scarce. Why did it do that? Scarcity, right? That's the constraint. There's some constraint that leads to scarcity. Okay, and in this case, it's not that there's a limited amount of it's not that there's only so many samosas in the room and there's only so many drinks in the room. Imagine you're in a room and it's an unlimited buffet, but something has to provide the scarcity, right? So in this case, Abby's on a strict ketogenic diet. It's like a popular diet where you limit the amount of carbs that you can consume. So he only consumes 180 grams of carbs a week, which isn't really keto. Keto is like closer to probably. I guess that would be considered keto. Probably a little high for keto, but whatever. I imagine it's 180 grams of carbs. I picked that number because it's nice and round. Okay. A Lagunitas, that's a type of beer, has 40 grams of carb, and a samosa has 32 grams of carb. Is it carbs plural? So if we were to construct a budget constraint for how many carbs and beers that Abby can drink, and I kind of accidentally scrolled a little too far, but we can just bring it over here. So a Lagunitas is 40 grams of carbs, right? And samosa is 32. It's 32 grams. Total 180 grams max, right? So Abby has to divide up the amount of carbs that he can consume between samosas and Lagunitas. And hopefully, at the end of the week, he's eating something else than beer and samosas, because that's not a very healthy diet. But let's whatever. It's econ world. We're doing this abstracted example where Abby's only eating 2 things. Abby is an actual person, by the way. He might be watching this video. Apparently, he's subscribed. But if you are, hi, Abby. Sorry to give you all the beer examples. So 180 grams is the max amount of carbs that he can eat. Okay. And he's actually on keto as well. And he gets 40 grams per Lagunitas, or we'll just call it beer. And he gets 32 grams per samosa. So if he had only beer, he'd have 4.5 beers, and you can see that wherever my calculator goes. So 40 times 4.5, 180. And if you had only samosas, you'd have 180 divided by 32. It's 5.625. 5.65 samosas and beers. Okay. So you can consume any sort of combination between 4.5 and 5.625. So I forget which is on the X from before. Samosas is on the X. And that's just to be consistent. It doesn't matter which you put on unless I ask you to put something on there. Okay. So Abby's got a line representing his budget constraint. This is his total budget constraint. He can consume some amount of beer and some amount of samosas as long as he's got 180 grams between the two of them. My cat is competing with me to be the loudest person in the room right now. So I'll wait for him. You can never win with teaching from home. I can't stand this, and I can't wait for the semester to be over, guys. No offense to y'all. I just miss classrooms. So I have to deal with my GD cats interrupting me in the middle of lectures. So he's got some combination of beer and samosas. You can see this is a linear function, right? There's no quadratics, there's no square roots, right? It's just if he consumes 4.5 beers, he'll be up here. And let's say he consumed 3 beers, he'd have 120 grams from beer. So that gives him 60 grams. So you could plot that. So how long can a cat scratch at something? Jeez Louise. All right, so what am I doing? 100. So if he had 3 beers, it would be 40 times 3, gives him 180 minus 120. I know the answer is 60, but I want to show you. It gives him 60 grams left over for samosas. So that's 1.875. So like 1.875. 3 is a point on this line. And we know that 5.6250 is a point on this line from here. And then, you know, we could solve for other ones if you wanted to. But if you don't believe me that it's a line and you can't see it by looking at the function, plot other points by all means and see, okay, look, it's a line. And it's always going to be a line with the budget constraint, unless for some reason the price of or the carbs from beer is like quadratic or something like that, which should never be the case. Okay, so your budget constraint is going to look like this. It's going to be a line with intercepts at 4.5 and 5.625. And any combination between or on this line is a combination that Abby can consume by maxing out his budget constraint. Anything under the budget constraint he can also consume, but it would net him less utility, provided that he likes both beer and samosas, right? So if he's like at a point here, he could always consume more beer and get a higher utility function, right? Or a higher indifference curve, right? Because as long as he's consuming more beer, he's going to be happier. Okay. So this is what I just showed you. This is the intercepts. And here's his budget constraint again. 32 times samosas plus 40 times beer. Okay. So it's a linear function. Here it is plotted. Okay. Stop there. So basically, a budget constraint is another way of graphically representing your decision problem, that you have a certain amount of some limiting factor, money or time. If you're like doing grad school economics, it could be among money, time, calories. It could be a three-dimensional budget constraint. It doesn't matter. But for this class, we're going to do a one-dimensional budget constraint that you can easily represent with a line. Okay. And it's just some limiting factor so that your choice isn't to pick unlimited amount of samosas, unlimited amount of beers. Something is going to eventually limit you, whether it's money, time, or calories. Okay.